Welcome to VLearn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 30th of the subject India Earliest Times to the 8th Century AD, and the chapter is Expansion of Trade in Urban Centers. Topics to be covered are Introduction, Types of Trade, Aspects of Commercial Organization, Exchange Facilities, Coins as Media of Exchange, Revenue from Trade, Weights and Measures, Urban Centers, the Impact of Trade in Urban Centers on Society. Introduction. In peninsular India, growth of trade and emergence of urban centers were not isolated phenomena but were very much associated with the other important changes which were taking place in the region. They were generated by changes within society in different parts of peninsular India caused by growth of agriculture in the major river valleys. Modern expansion in peninsular India led to greater contact with the north and to the movement of traders, merchants and others. This is suggested by the advantages of the southern route highlighted in the Arth Shastra. So in peninsular India, there was growth of trade and the urban centers were emerged, and they were not isolated phenomena but they were very much associated with the other important changes which were taking place in the region. And changes within society in different parts of peninsular India that also caused the growth of agriculture, and modern expansion led to greater contact with the north and the movement of traders and merchants took place. Types of trade. Some of the articles available in South India were required by other parts of the subcontinent and even by other countries and civilizations. Contacts were established through land routes or sea routes by those distant countries, and the necessary articles were procured. So contacts were established, contact networks were established through land routes, either by land routes or by sea routes by those who were distant countries who were far off, and the necessary articles were procured through that only. And some of the articles were available in South India. They were required by the other parts of the subcontinent and other countries and civilizations also. So thus we can identify three levels of trade: local trade, which happened within themselves, long distance overland trade and long distance overseas trade. Local trade. Barter was the most common mode of transaction in the context of local exchange. So there was no money system, there was barter system in which commodities were exchanged against each other. One commodity was given and in exchange to that another commodity or another product or good was taken. So there was no money which was there. Most of the items of barter were for immediate consumption: salt, fish, paddy, dairy products, roots, venison, honey and toddy were the regular items of barter in the far south. So most of the items of barter were for immediate consumption: salt, paddy, dairy products, fish, roots, honey and toddy. They were the regular items of barter. Salt was exchanged for paddy. Paddy was exchanged for milk, curd and ghee. Honey was given for taking fish oil and liquor. Rice flakes and sugarcane were given for venison and toddy. Very rarely luxury items like pearls and elephant tusks also appeared as items of barter. So that happened very rare. But mostly these were the items: milk, paddy, honey, fish oil and liquor. Long distance overland trade. Contacts in various fairs between the northern and southern pans of India can be traded back to at least the 4th century BC, if not earlier. Resources of the regions which lay to the south of the Vindhyan ranges were known to the north. Early Buddhist literature seems to refer to a route which ran from the Ganga valley to the Godavari valley. This was known as the Dakshina Patha. Kautilya, the author of the Arth Shastra, has written about the advantage of the southern route. So contacts in various fairs between the northern and the southern parts of India that can be also traded back to at least the 4th century BC. And the early Buddhist literature seems to refer to a route which ran from the Ganga valley to the Godavari valley, and this was the most advantageous route that was said by Kautilya. Long distance overseas trade, Indian items such as spices, precious and semi precious stones, timber, ivory, and many other articles were in great demand in the Western countries. The main source of these articles was South India. These articles were shipped to the West from very early times. We shall identify two stages in the commercial contact of Rome with peninsular India: an early stage with the Arabs as middlemen, a second stage in which direct contact was established with the knowledge of the monsoon winds. Aspects of commercial organization. In small scale local transactions, quite often the producers were the dealers too. Fishing and salt making were done exclusively by the community of Paratavas, mentioned in the Sangam region as living in the Naital coastal region, and they had to devote their whole time for these activities. Therefore, a different method was followed in the distribution of fish and salt. Fish was taken to the neighboring areas of the sea coast by the womenfolk of the fishermen's family. They appeared in the places of village fairs and other rural gatherings. So, fish was taken to the neighboring areas of the sea coast by the women folk of the fishermen's family, and they appeared in the places of village fairs and rural gatherings. Coins as media of exchange. Though barter was the most common mode of transaction, the use of coins as a means of exchange became current in the period that we were discussing. So, coins also came in, and coins also became the main area of exchange, though there was barter system available. The coins which were towns, and each town seems to have had a guild or a nigma. Each guild had an elderman, sethi, and its own office. The organization of traders acted as a bank. It received deposits and lent out money. So the organization of the traders, they acted as a bank, and they received deposits and they lent money. The guilds of weavers, potters, oil pressers, bamboo workers, braziers, etc. are known from the inscriptions of the Deccan. Exchange facilities. The question of facilities for transportation, storage, and shipping is relevant, particularly in the context of long distance trade, in which the movement of bulk items is a problem. In the far south, pepper, paddy, and salt were the main items which required movement in bulk. In Western Deccan, timber also was a bulk item of demand from the west. Pack animals and carts were used for inland transport. In Tamilham, there were several routes which connected the interior tracts with the settlements in the river valleys, port towns, and seats of rulers. So, there were the question of facilities of transportation, storage, and shipping that was also relevant in the context of long distance trade, especially when carrying the bulk goods was a problem. So, pack animals and carts, they were used for the inland transport, and the Western Deccan timber, that was also a bulk item of demand from the west. Pepper, paddy, and salt were the main items which required movement in bulk. And there were also several routes which were connected with the interior as well as with the river valleys. Local coins. Local coins of different varieties were prevalent in different regions in peninsular India. Ancient Tamil literature speaks about some of such as Kasu, Kanam, Pau, and Ven Pau, but actual coins which may correspond to these names have not been discovered. In the Deccan, inscriptions refer to the use of Kahapanas, which were silver coins locally minted, and Tosuvarnas, which refer to gold coins either of the Romans or the Kushans. So, ancient Tamil literature speaks about Kasu, Kanam, Pau, and Ven Pau, but the actual coins which may respond to these names have not been discovered. So, there were a lot of local coins also which were found out and which were used for the exchange. Roman coins. Ancient Tamil literature refers to Yavana, Roman ships bringing their large quantities of gold to Tamilham to be exchanged for pepper. The Roman Emperor Tiberius wrote to the Senate in 22 AD that the wealth of the empire was being drained off to foreign lands in exchange of petty things. In the 1st century AD, Pliny, the author of the Natural History, complained that every year a huge amount of Roman wealth went out to India, China, and Arabia for luxury articles. Revenue from trade. Collection of revenue as a regular source of income to the treasury depends on several factors, including the efficiency of the government. Political developments in different regions in peninsular India in our period were not uniform in character, so the revenue system also varied from region to region. Toll was collected for merchandise moving on pack animals and carts. The toll was known as ulku, a derivative of the Sanskrit term sulka, meaning toll. This seems to indicate that the idea of toll was borrowed from the north. Weights and measures. A developed system of exchange requires regular weights and measures. When it is possible to weigh, measure, and count objects, which is buying or selling, exchange becomes both easy and efficient. The buyer and the seller do not have to feel uncertain about the quantity or size of the object bought or sold. In the decade where dealing with different kinds of items in the trading centers was a regular practice, the impact of exact measurements must have been prevalent. Coins were issued in different denominations and land was measured in terms of nivartanas. So, a developed system of exchange requires regular weights and measures, and when it is possible to weigh, measure, and count objects which one is buying or selling, exchange becomes both easy and efficient. Buyer and the seller do not have to feel uncertain about the quantity of the object bought or sold. Urban centers. The western and eastern coast had several port towns. In the coastal Andhra region, in the delta of the Godavari and the Krishna, there were some important centers. Ships sailed from there to the Malay Peninsula and eastern archipelago. The western port towns of Bharukcha, Broch, Sopara, and Kalyana, however, appear to be older and more important in the early phase of Indo-Roman trade. In the interior, there were big and small urban centers: Pratisthana, Tagara, Bhogavardhana, Karhataka, Nasik, Vijayanti, Dhanyakataka, Vijaypuri, etc. The impact of trade and urban centers on society. Early trade and urban developments do not seem to have brought about very fundamental changes in the social life of Tamilham. Local exchange was subsistence oriented. This means that the items which changed hands through local exchange were used for regular consumption by different groups of people. Long distance trade was mostly luxury goods which did not circulate beyond the kinship circles of the chieftains and their men. Individual merchants' wealth and prosperity, as seen in their gifts to monks, were not very impressive. So, individuals' merchants' wealth and prosperity, that was not very much impressive, and local exchange was subsistence oriented, and this means that items which changed hands through local exchange, they were used for regular consumption by different groups. That was all about urban centers and how they developed and their impact. These are some of the questions. You have to do it yourself. Question number 1, write 5 lines on the relations between monasteries and the traders, and write 5 lines on the impact of trade and urbanism on the local traders and artisans. That's all. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.